The downfall of Hollywood and celebrity culture has been on my mind a lot lately. Now, I'm not Nostradamus here, but even as going back as far as just a few months ago, certainly a year ago, I was making videos where I was discussing the hypocrisy of Hollywood, and in particular, when we're speaking politically, the hypocrisy of the left in Hollywood. Now, I'm not talking about the entire left as a collective or the traditional liberal or anything like that. I'm not attacking people that are liberal. I'm speaking very specifically about people in Hollywood who constantly are projecting onto you, the American public, and just in general, the everyday common day man or the moviegoer, the people who go pay to support these people, to support their $100 million ventures, because we like entertainment, we like to escape our mundane lives. But I made videos discussing Joss Whedon. These were months ago, and his hypocrisy, and I was going through just his Twitter and interviews and so on. I've talked about this with Judd Apatow, and it was one actor after another, one filmmaker after another. Now, of course, once again, not all, of course, not. I don't even think most of them. I don't think most filmmakers are secretly, pieces of crap. I don't think most actors are all bad people. So once again, not generalizations here. But I made a bunch of videos on this because when I was doing more political content on this channel before YouTube started coming after me, um, and basically being like, "Hey, we're gonna shut this channel down because people are flagging your videos and so on." But that's not entirely YouTube's fault. It's a broken flagging system where there's really no innocent until proven guilty. You're just kind of guilty on YouTube. If you get a copyright claim on YouTube, you're guilty. You have to fight between the person who gives you the copyright claim. Recently, I got a copyright claim on a video of mine, and the thing that they claimed was original music that my friend had done for me. Music that I saw him make. His own original music they were claiming was this rap song or something that sounded nothing like it. And there's just always been crap like that. Instead of YouTube coming in and being like, well, that clearly isn't the song. This guy wrote an original song. This isn't copyright. I'm having to go through this whole ordeal over a course of a month, is how it is. It can go on for that long to where, they're not even going to look at my dispute for a while. They wait. It's annoying. It's annoying how YouTube runs things, but that's being off topic, honestly. The thing is, though, when I talked about the Hollywood stuff, it wasn't because I was smart or that I saw the forest from the trees. I think it was obvious to anyone who was willing to look. You had heard this stuff for years. I think it was painfully obvious to anyone that just paid attention, who had any understanding of basic human psychology or how people act or things like that. You could tell so many people were lying about things and putting on a face. And in particular, actors, people who are professional at pretending at being other people. I mean, of course, they would be good at lying and hiding things. And you would just see so many things that were contradictions, and the intelligence of a lot of performers and people in Hollywood came up to be questioned over the last few years. I was like, I guess a lot of these people really aren't that smart. They're just famous, and good looking or what have you. So we give them this extra benefit of the doubt that they probably don't deserve. So I'm going to talk mainly here about not just the Harvey Weinstein, but Kevin Spacey and the whole can of worms that's coming out of that. Now, this is from the Hollywood Reporter, which I think is pretty reliable and was pretty unbiased on this Kevin Spacey thing. So Kevin Spacey comes out and he gets somebody accuses him, Anthony Rapp, an actor, that says, and he told BuzzFeed News this, that the two met in 1986 when both were appearing in Broadway shows. One night, Spacey invited Rapp to his apartment for a party. Later, Rapp says, he found himself bored and watching TV in Spacey's bedroom when he realized that he was the only one left in the apartment with the actor, who was 26 at the time. Now, before we even get into all that, the weirdness, can we just bring up why the hell would a 26-year-old have a 14-year-old over for a party? I could tell you I'm 27. I'm not inviting 14-year-old girls over to my place for a party. That's creepy. That's is inappropriate to say the least. Even if he's a mature 14-year-old who wants to come, you just don't do that as an adult. You kind of have to make those rules for yourself that you don't party with teenagers. This is like back in the 70s in Club 54. If you watch this documentary on the Annie kids, the girls who played Annie, they'll talk about how they were taken to Club 54 and partied with adults in the late 70s. Everyone was doing drugs and stuff, and they had little kids there. It's so weird with the industry. It's like they can come on and complain about politics or Donald Trump, and I'm not saying they don't have the right to do that stuff, or just push political correctness and talk about what's offensive and not offensive, and talk about how much they have to say as artists, and they have to use humor and satire on these shows, and they have to tell us what they feel, because they're important people. We need to know what Jennifer Lawrence thinks. We have to listen to Patton Oswalt on politics. These people matter, and that Kevin Spacey's been one who's done this for years now. Has been very involved in politics. I mean, not just the House of Cards things. He's been front and center in a lot of campaigns. Very outspoken guy. It was always clear he was gay. I always thought, everyone always kind of. I remember hearing that back when I was a kid, when American Beauty came out. People were telling me, oh, that guy's, it's a gay actor. And say it like, because back then it was kind of like, it was kind of a secret sometimes, like, oh, is that guy gay? Because it wasn't as open back then as it is now. But everyone always kind of knew Kevin Spacey was gay, I feel. But going beyond that, just the idea that he even got to that point, that he was hanging out with a teenager when he was an adult, that's just weird to me to begin with. If it was some innocent thing, like, hey, do you want to go get a pizza and hang out? Or do you want to go, like, go to a movie and hang out or something? I work with you on the show. Let's hang out. I'll be like a big brother. That makes sense. But this sounds like such a predator thing. Rapp, who is now 46, claimed that Spacey then picked me up like a groom picks up the bride over the threshold. But I don't, squirm away initially because I'm like, what's going on? And then he lays down on top of me. Wow. Now, he's saying that Spacey was holding him down while tightening his grip on him, who was able to get away after some time. He was trying to seduce me. I don't know if I would have used that language, but I was aware that he was trying to get with me sexually. Rapp then went into the bathroom and closed the door. So here was Kevin Spacey's response on Twitter. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago, but if I did believe then as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I am sorry for the feelings he describes having carried with him all these years. The story has encouraged me to address other things about my life. I know that there are stories out there about me, and that some have been fueled by the fact that I have been so protective of my privacy. As those closest to me know, in my life I have had relationships with both men and women. I have loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man. I want to deal with this honestly and openly, and that starts with examining my own behavior. So, Hollywood Reporter says, the strange posts, which seem to yoke together an apology for the alleged sexual assault of a child with a coming out announcement, prompted even more condemnation. For a famous person to deflect these accusations with a long-in-the-making coming out is so cruel to his supposed new community, it stings. What's next? This is likely only the beginning of what could turn out to be a long, ugly saga. A top London theater director says the people have had concerns about Spacey for some time now. I think that many people in the theater and in the creative industries have been aware of many stories of many people over a lot of years, and Kevin Spacey would be one of the people that people have had concerns about. One of the less important but still interesting questions here, what does Netflix do with the flagship scripted series House of Cards now? Filming for the 6th season is currently underway, yet allegations against other prominent figures post-Harvey, Mark Halperin, Roy Price, have led to swift firings and the loss of projects. Netflix may have to address this soon. That guy Mark works at NBC. He's officially out at NBC. After coming under fire for a long time of history of alleged sexual misconduct and harassment, political journalist has been officially axed by NBC News and MSNBC. So, once again, isn't that weird? Working for a very left-leaning organization and news outlet. Now, I'm not trying to be, conspiracy theorists here. It's not a conspiracy. It's just weird that all the people that are it's been coming out that are like doing this stuff, to men and women, are outspoken politically, where they lean, and they all came out vocally and went after Donald Trump last year for the pussy grabbing tape, right? And how if you vote for this guy, if you support this guy, you're evil, you're supporting it and all that. Now we're finding out they all knew about all this stuff going on for years, decades, and nobody did anything. Now, that's not me giving a pass to Donald Trump or anyone, to be honest with you, and I'm just saying that, the hypocrisy means something when you're that vocal, one way. If you don't bring it up that much, then it's different, but these are people that all came out and, basically called Trump supporters Nazis. Now, not every celebrity, but, it's just the association with the Clintons and everything going on, it's weird. It's weird. I don't think there's some secret thing going on. It's just so awful that the morality card is what was played so much in the 2016 election and still played now by so many people. And the morality card cannot be played when you do not have moral consistency to hold on to. You don't have the backbone of that for it to mean anything. I'll bring up a point here. Quentin Tarantino, when he made Django Unchained, was on a radio show, where he was asked about going to protest police brutality in New York. He went to go join, I think, Black Lives Matter, which in this interview he said Black Lives do matter. He agreed with the host, which I'm not knocking. Quentin has the right to do all that. But Quentin said what made him do this was he got a phone call. And the phone call was saying, hey, what side of history do you want to be on? Pick a side. If you don't come here and protest with us, you're pretty much contributing to this. You're being silent about this and you're okay with it. So Quentin said, you know what, you're right. So he went and protested with them, and he said his whole goal was to not make these people who died by the police a statistic. They had to be real humans, right? So he gives this whole spiel about that and systemic racism and the prison population and basically the government being racist, police being racist. Then it comes out Quentin Tarantino pretty much knew about Harvey Weinstein this whole time. And now he's coming out and saying, hey, I feel bad about this. I shouldn't have been complicit with this. I knew about stuff going on. I heard stuff, and I just ignored it. So it's just, once again, there. Tarantino comes on and basically preaches on that radio show, that interview. So I'm sorry I can't remember the name of the show off the top of my head, but I'll try to put the clip in the description if I can find it. And then now he's coming out being like, well, yeah, but, I was silent all these years, 20 years working with Harvey Weinstein. But now that all the stuff's coming out, oh, now I care. Now I'm coming out and speaking. Sorry, Quentin. You don't get to use the argument of what side of history are you on a few years ago when you make your slave movie. Your quite frankly, ridiculous slave movie where it's a white guy having the idea of what a black male fantasy is about slavery, as opposed to like what would actually be compelling. And I don't dislike Django, but man, it is an awkward movie to watch. It's an exploitation genre film that borders on satire or comedy. It's like trying to be Blazing Saddles, and Quentin Tarantino's just hammering these things in. And then whenever anybody criticizes the film, he falls back into, hey, I'm being realistic. I'm dealing with real racism and slavery. It's like, okay, a few things here, Quentin. A lot of what you portray in that movie is not realistic to the times. The N-word was not the only slang used in slave times or in that era of the world. That wasn't the only thing they called black people. And as someone who's a historian like you know that. You're just relying on the shock value of that word, which I don't care. I think people should be able to use that word in art. But still, Blazing Saddles uses that word 17 times in 90 minutes to perfect effect and gets its point across. Use that word just freely. And his whole argument is like, hey, yeah, but this is how it was. It's like, not totally, actually. I studied a lot of the language and what was going on at the time. It wasn't totally like that. Now, I'm not, but it's funny, Quentin always gets to make these fantasy history films where Hitler gets shot up in a theater, and then he gets mad if people challenge that because he's a historian. And it's like, okay, well, if you can't use that argument when your films aren't historically accurate. That's one of my issues. But that's art. That's different. But Quentin in his real life is showing to be a major hypocrite. If it benefited him to work with Harvey Weinstein, if it benefited his career in life, then it didn't matter what women got affected. It didn't matter as long as Harvey didn't mess with his girlfriends, is basically how it came across. And it's ridiculous. It makes me question Quentin just in a lot of ways. The integrity of the man. It bothers me because I was a big fan of him and Kevin Spacey. This is devastating. I love Kevin Spacey. I've been a fan of Kevin Spacey. Well, let's go. Swimming with Sharks. Jesus, he was Glenn Ross. Great role in that early on. The Big Kahuna. Great theater work, and a lot of those were play adaptations. But man, just great work. Seven. The Negotiator. The Usual Suspects. American Beauty. I mean, he had a run in the 90s that was legendary. For about 10 years, he was about as good as any actor his career has ever been. He had like just this great run of great roles, great performances, great movies, one after another. He was in so many classics, like Seven, American Beauty, The Usual Suspects. He was in one classic after another. So it's so devastating to find this out, that not only is he getting accused by one person, but that we're hearing that a lot of people have said in the theater community. And I've always heard rumors about the stuff about Kevin Spacey, that he was kind of a perv. But they're rumors, so you don't take them to heart. But it does come off really bad when he uses the whole thing as an excuse to now come out as gay. And I've heard a lot of people say, don't you get it, for him to address this issue where he claims he forgot and he was drunk, he has to talk about being gay. He wasn't trying to scapegoat. But the problem is, it totally reads like he's trying to put it off on the gay thing. Because shouldn't the last thing be, really, shouldn't the first paragraph be more about being gay than the second paragraph? The first paragraph is more the apology and about the situation. The second paragraph's where he starts to come out about my protective privacy. I've had relationships with men and women. I've loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life. I choose now to live as a gay man. And then, this last part, I have to deal honestly about openly, that starts with examining my own behavior. Let's flip this. Let's say it's a guy who's being accused by a 14-year-old girl of doing this. Elvis, by the way, Jerry Lee Lewis with his cousin, Charles Chaplin. This isn't new stuff. a lot of guys liked the younger. But, I guess you could argue that was a different time. But I still think, getting with your 13-year-old cousin back in the day was a weird thing. But in today's world, it's really frowned upon. Let's flip this, though. I think the guy would be getting a lot of flack if he came out and said, well, hey, I'm openly heterosexual. I've had romantic relationships with men and women, and I don't remember being drunk and coming on to a 14-year-old girl. Sorry. Maybe he does remember. Maybe it didn't even happen. Who knows? I'm not one to lean one way or the other, but it is telling, instead of him coming out and just saying it's not true, that he's kind of acknowledging it by saying I don't remember and I may have been drunk. That's a little telling to me, more so than just saying, well, hey, that never happened. To me, it leans more like it probably did happen. Because I could, the right answer should be, if it didn't happen, hey, I don't remember that. That didn't happen. That's a lie. That guy's lying and I don't know why. Because you don't have to respect the victim when you're being accused of something. If you didn't take part in the action that you're being accused of, you have every right to come out and say, hey, that person's lying. I want evidence. But Spacey didn't do that. They said Lionsgate executive Andrew Kramer exited after harassment allegations. Actor Tyler Cornell has filed a crime report against Grissom, the APA talent agent who was fired amid numerous accusations of sexual assault and harassment from men who recently spoke out on social media. Rose McGowan has been coming out a lot, although it's unfortunately hard to totally believe her because I think she's kind of crazy and druggy. I'm not saying she's wrong. Clearly stuff happened to her. Same thing with Corey Feldman. Problem with Corey Feldman is I want to blindly be on his side, and I do support him, and I do think stuff happened to Corey Haim, but Corey Feldman, unfortunately, is another guy that has a lot of issues and is all kind of over the place. I'm not saying I don't believe them. It's just they're not the most trustworthy people. They're not people I take 100% at face value. I'm just too skeptical to blindly believe everyone. And this is where we're at now, We're at this weird place where the illusion of celebrity, the illusion of Hollywood is slowly going away, and now it's getting rapid. It's getting quicker. It used to be that the blocks were built, if you were playing Jenga, the blocks were built, and you'd pull one out at a time, and it would kind of wobble. And that's been Hollywood for a while. It's been wobbling there. But now somebody pulled out like 3 or 4 of the blocks, and the whole thing's just crumbling. It's just falling, and it's opening up a can of worms. Everyone's getting accused now. Everyone's getting attacked. Not all the actors, of course. No one's coming out and saying stuff about Tom Hanks or stuff like that. But a lot of people that are big figures in the industry and very very much involved in political campaigns and endorsements for political parties. Like I said, they have the right to do that. Everyone does. They're citizens. They can voice what they feel. But the issue with this is, like I said, the whole game that's been played by Hollywood at these award shows, on the late night talk shows, on all the comedy shows, on the radio shows, on all this stuff that leans that way. I went to a Roger Waters concert recently, Pink Floyd's Roger Waters, and the whole thing was a Trump thing. Like, he had Trump going around as a pig. He had this pig flying around the room on an animal during the animal stuff, and he had Trump up there as a pig. He just had Trump naked. He had the whole thing was anti-Trump. It was all about Putin. It was all about Russia. It was all about money. The entire thing, like pretty much the whole concert, that was the theme. And he was telling us to resist. You know, the 71-year-old multi-millionaire, pretty much historically been documented as a freaking asshole, Roger Waters. Even though I'm a huge fan, the dude's a dick. I mean, hey guys, I don't want to tell you, a lot of musicians, Glenn Fry and Don Henley weren't nice guys. John Lennon wasn't always a nice guy. It doesn't mean they weren't great artists. But Roger Waters up there the whole time preaching to me, about how bad Trump is and all that. But it just gets old after a point. It gets old that people keep throwing, you go to a concert and you want to be entertained for 2 hours and you hear this crap. And that's how it is at those award shows where the ratings keep declining. And that's how it is with those late night shows where every night it's, 20 Trump jokes. And it always comes back to moral grandizing. It's about we're better, we're superior, and these people are worse, and we're trying to tell you what's right or wrong. It's the game of Rachel Maddow. It's the game of Stephen Colbert. It's the game of Jimmy Kimmel's. It's the game of all of these people. It's ridiculous, and it got old and tired fast once the hypocrisy got exposed. Once it came out that there was a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors, and this is deeper than that. This goes to these male feminist movie blogger guys, Harry Knowles, Devin Faraci, Andy Signor. Same thing, guys who have been vocal on Twitter about misogyny and toxic male culture and all Gamergate, all talk about Gamergate and all that. And then it comes out they're being creepy with women. It's getting old. That everyone who seems to be someone who's so easily throwing out accusations of people being misogynist or sexist or not respecting women seem to respect women a lot less than the rest of us, who I think are more in the center politically, who aren't radical and don't support extremism. I don't support your extremism, because the problem with extremism is that when you get people set in that, when you get them set in stone like that, and then the illusion gets broken when it falls, that what the extreme point is not real, because human beings turn out to be more complex than that, and there is no ultimate good or evil. That's all bullshit. You kill any kind of movement or actual progress that we could make for this country and for everyone to get involved. Instead, it's going to create more anger, more division. It's going to hurt the industry. It's going to hurt entertainment. We're going to, movies are less people are going to the theater this year. More people are watching Netflix and streaming stuff every year. Less people have cable. There's just a lot of things changing. Technology is changing everything, how we view things. And they're probably going to incorporate VR and a lot of these things to keep us going to the theater. But they seem to forget that a big reason that we went to go see these movies and we liked this stuff was because of the illusion, because we loved the actors, we loved movies, we loved the Hollywood, we loved celebrity. But then places like Twitter, it broke the gap. You could just start communicating with people, and then these celebrities got exposed in a lot of ways in modern day media. Spacey was probably smarter being quiet. But now, now that everyone's been so vocal, it's easy for us to go look through the years of, tweets, or go look at the interviews and all the podcasts they've been on and be like, well, hey, there's something here that you need to address. And it's once again, I have no problem with people expressing their political views. It's just when you bring up the morality arguments, it's okay to express what you feel politically, what you think the size of the government should be, how you feel about gun control, what you feel about healthcare, immigration. Those are topics that should be discussed, and they're gray. There's nuance to those topics. Unfortunately, though, when the whole argument, which has pretty much been that, is morality, is this is bad, this is good. And then now it's gray what's good or bad, and all of you are trying to slip out of, let's hear Kevin Spacey out. He came out as gay. There's headlines talking more about how he came out as gay than to talking about how he laid on top of a 14-year-old. And once you see The Wizard and you find out who he is, Oz isn't Oz anymore. And they seem to forget that movies are an optical illusion, and with sound and hearing, all these things are illusion. When you break that, when you make the people be seen for who they really are, you have to be judged in the same way that people do in every facet of today, the internet. You know, if I make a YouTube video, or you post on Facebook, or you write on Twitter, you know, you're exposed to the whole world to attack you and criticize what you say or do, or blindly praise you, what have you. You know, but these guys, they've been in a shelter for a long time. They've been in a safe space, hidden from that kind of thing. You know, sure, you have the media and the paparazzi and all that, but you still have a way that you can keep a lot of the behind the scenes stuff locked up, and it's just talk between people who work in the industry. You know, these are the same people that gave Roman Polanski an Oscar and all stood up and applauded, and Meryl Streep was, you know, whistling and happy as hell. A guy who anally raped a 13-year-old girl at Jack Nicholson's house at a party in the 70s. Once again, a party where they had teenagers. I don't know about you guys. As an adult, I never party with teenagers. I find that really, really weird. I would hate to even be around teenagers, let alone partying with them. I have no interest in hanging out with teenagers. If I have a kid someday and they end up being a teenager, sure, I'll hang out with them. They'll be my kid. But I'm not going to hang out with their friends all the time and have them over at the house when my kid's not there. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. This is weird stuff in everyday life, but in the world of Hollywood, they try to make it like, well, we blur the lines between drugs and sex and life and culture, man. It's all... I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos' entire career got destroyed because of his comments about being 13, 14 and sexually mature enough to have sex with an older man. That pretty much was the end of his career. All this momentum he had building, and now it's coming out, you know, it seems so obvious now that they're having these parties with young boys and stuff like that. And I'm not going to harp on Bryan Singer and all that stuff that's been around forever. God, it sucks because you want to like these people, right? But there's that kill your idols thing. You also want them to be better. You want them to be challenged. You want people that it's going to make the argument's going to come down to it eventually is, do you have to be a good person to make good art and have people view that art, you know? And I don't think you have to be. This is why I never liked everyone just going after Mel Gibson or Charlie Sheen like they were Satan. You know, because it's clear that everyone else does things that are if not way worse things that get a pass. So if Hollywood's going to be forgiving to all this stuff, they got to be forgiving to everything. Okay? You can't choose who you're mad at. You either got to be mad at everyone, or you can't just be mad at people you don't like. It sucks because, like I said, you want to believe these people have the best intentions and they're not using their power and celebrity, and they're not being influenced, or they're not letting it go to their heads, their ego of living in a bubble of being so famous that they've lost connection with like how to do everyday things. They've forgotten rules. It's a Sodom and Gomorrah thing. They just throw it all out the window. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing for, I think, the development of this country. I don't think that's a good thing for all these industries. A lot of people get employed here. You're hurting the employees. You're hurting the guys who do the crappy jobs that have families. You're hurting them with your bullshit. The moral grandizing has to stop, or Hollywood will continue its downfall, which I saw coming a long time ago, but I think everyone else saw it too. I think the Sony email leaks revealed a lot about producers talking and the kind of stuff they say. I think once we found out there was a political agenda with a lot of the movies being made, and it's clearly a political agenda on Saturday Night Live, a lot of outlets that just, you know, you want to like and feel like you want to think that they just go after what's funny. They just go after what's right. But you know they have an agenda. It's becoming so clear now. They're just telling us at award shows they have an agenda. They didn't used to do that. I mean, David Harbour from Stranger Things, the sheriff, is up there talking about, you know, punching people in the face and fighting bullies and all that. And he's talking about punching Nazis, basically. You know, Sheriff Hopper. It's like, oh my God. You know, they don't hide it anymore. They don't care. They think they're right and everyone else is wrong because they lived in that bubble where they thought, oh, everyone's going to vote one way and agree with us. And people didn't. People disagreed with them. For better or worse, what have you. But they disagreed with them, and they can't deal with that. They can't deal with the fact that the country doesn't blindly go along with them. Do you remember that famous George Clooney speech years ago? That terrible George Clooney speech, the one South Park made fun of, where he talked about basically like Hollywood cured AIDS and the civil rights movement and all that. Hollywood was the first people to care, even though that's not true. I'm not saying Hollywood didn't getting involved in those things, but if he's trying to act like what they do today is equivalent of the civil rights movement with those actors who marched on the streets and stuff like that. Not the same thing, George. You really haven't done much of anything with your career that had an impact that wasn't already happening naturally. George Clooney isn't the reason gay marriage is the thing now. Um, but Ben Affleck stuff gets thrown at him now. If now George H. Bush, basically now, if you ever smacked a woman on the butt, you ever did something inappropriate, you're a sexual harasser, sexual assaulter. They're just gonna more of these are gonna come out. These aren't gonna stop. They're gonna keep coming out, and it's like the Bill Cosby effect is led into 2017. There won't be any innocent proven till guilty. I don't think. It feels like once you get accused, your career is pretty much gonna have that sting to it, which maybe it's better that way. Maybe it's worse. I'm not sure what's the right way to act, but these are issues that have to be settled amongst the people themselves, and I don't like it. I don't like being put up against a wall where I have to be where I want to just talk about movies and enjoy movies, right? I want to just be a guy who makes art or talks about it in my free time as a hobby. I do this as a hobby because I love talking about stuff. I love having an opinion. I love expressing it and hearing other people's points of views. But what sucks now is that it's really like pick a side, like Tarantino said in that interview. That's what people are putting you up against. But Hollywood picked their side, and because they did, it's blowing up in their faces. And I think not only do I think the industry is going to decline due to lack of narrative, too many releases throughout the year, too many blockbusters, too many remakes, too many films in certain genres, not enough different types of things coming out. I think the adult drama is pretty much dead with the mainstream audiences. I think Hollywood's contributed to that death, though. Saturated market, new options and streaming and all that, unlimited possibilities of entertainment now that didn't exist before, YouTube and all that, more video games now than you could ever play. You can play every game from the beginning till now. You can listen to any song ever. You can watch movies from the beginning of film till now. I spend most of my time watching films from the 40s or 50s or the 70s. I don't watch a lot of new movies. I go find obscure stuff that I haven't seen before. Because you can do that now. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to go find the works of Cassavetes. Or a lot of directors that were hard to get for a long time. There were some directors that wasn't easy to see all of their films back in the 80s and 90s, but now you can find really good quality versions of a lot of these great auteurs' filmographies. You have to be the clown. You have to be the phantom. Donald Trump takes the role as the phantom. It doesn't matter. It can be anything. You don't know who the real guy is. These people try to portray themselves as certain kind of people, and that's really not who they are. And that's fine. You don't have to be that person, but don't pretend you're that person. And I'm devastated. I feel bad for all the victims. I hope more people come out. The stuff that Terry Crews said. James Vanderbeek was also assaulted. Apparently, a lot of men assaulting other men too. A lot of gay men going after other men in Hollywood. Sickens me. I can't imagine what it's like to have your junk grabbed like that by someone when you don't want it to. I've had women grab my junk before when I didn't want them to, which is really funny because that's really, if you reverse that, everyone went crazy and said it was the end of the world. And it's been my whole life, women have done that kind of weird crap where they're at a party and they'll come grab your junk because somebody told them to as a joke, and they laugh and you're like, I didn't invite you over here to grab my dick, but okay. I guess I'm going to go over I wouldn't come up and grab your boobs like that. I think that would make you pretty mad, but okay, just do that. The hypocrisy, I think, is finally coming to light, though. We're realizing that this is a more complex issue. It doesn't just involve women and evil men. It involves a lot of people. There's a lot more people in the gay community involved with this than we probably wanted to admit. And I think it'll continue. I think things will continue to come out, and what Hollywood decides to do with this, and what the media and everyone involved decides to do with this over the next year, is really going to affect the next few years and the outcome of a lot of things. Be it the box office, ratings of shows, DVD sales, politics, even. I feel like, because we live in a celebrity politic culture. Donald Trump was a celebrity businessman who became the president. We live in a different world now. Twitter now is like a political hub for debate. I don't know if Obama kicked that off and it carried over. It's weird. We live in a different world. The digital age is not the same as what's come before, and I feel like a lot of these people can't adjust to that, and they're having their downfall because the digital age is just overpowering them. It's like Shia with the whole 4chan thing and the flag. You can't win against the internet. If the internet wants you, you can't win. And once the momentum starts to build against you, you're gonna you know what happens. I mean, this is what happens once the dust storm builds up. You get overwhelmed. You're like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 4. You're hanging on the building, and all that dirt and stuff's coming up to hit you, and you're like, oh my god, I got to get out of here. I'm gonna. It's what it is though. This is, please rewind. And if anyone out there has suffered from something like this in the past, be it in the industry or their daily work, just a normal job where your boss harassed you or someone who had power over you, those of us out there who aren't that way, we support you, and you're never going to hear anything like that about me. And you're never going to hear anything like that about people that I associate myself with and I work with. And if anything ever does happen in my life, or anyone that I know's life, I'll be the first person to tell them to piss off and speak out against them. I'm not for this quietly being passive while people do bad things to other people. That's what industry creates. That's what corporate America in a lot of ways creates. Unfortunately, because I love capitalism and the free market, but people let it get to their heads sometimes. And this is the problem when you have a bunch of yes men all the time and people who don't tell you no, and you live in a bubble. And I think that's what happened with this LA crowd. They were in a bubble for too long, and we just had to put little dents in the bubble, and now it's popped. The whole thing's popped and it's coming down. But all I could say is that I hope you guys rewind your VHS tapes before you bring them back to the store. Because I don't want to have to sit there and do it.
There's only us. There's only